going for the jugular, as you might say. So let me see if I can share the screen. And okay, so I'm going to ask for people to read because this is a lot of reading. But anyhow, we'll begin with the first person I can see on my screen. And Victor, that's you.
Yay!
Okay. Classical Jewish mysticism.
Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah.
I have. You can't see.
I
Can
can't, but I have the script. I can read off of that.
Have I shared the screen?
Yes.
You're the
Yeah.
only
Me.
one who
the
doesn't
only
have a
one.
share screen.
Doesn't work in Pittsburgh.
Doesn't work in Pittsburgh.
Oh wait, there we go. Okay, wait. Okay, got it.
Blame Donald Trump. Close.
Thank you, Marcel,
right.
for your words of wisdom. Okay,
Classical Jewish mysticism going back to ancient times, and in the Merkava literature, its focus is on spiritually talented people training their souls to ascend to the higher realms and returning unscathed to this world.
Okay, so again, this is not the Zohar, but what went on for a long time is that you can, if you're spiritually talented, leave this world, go up to heaven, and come back. How do we know? Moshe ala el Elohim, Shmot Perek Yutet, and we know that Moshe came back different. He no longer was in touch with the physical world, and the physical world was only an accident as far as he was concerned. So he's the archetype, the main type of somebody who can go up to God. And Rabbi Akiva, Victor, please.
And Rabbi Akiva and his companions who entered the Pardes, and Rav
Do you
Yishmael.
remember the Pardes from Masechet Chagiga? Sure. No? Well, I think we'll sort of read how the Zohar interprets this after this Shiur. But 4 rabbis entered an orchard. Of course, the orchard is Pei for Pshat, Resh for Remez, Daled for Drash, and Samach for Sod, secret at the end. So we go from what is understandable to what is absolutely mysterious and secret. They were Rabbi Akiva, Elisha ben Abuya, Ben Zoma, and Ben Azai, all Tanaim. And the only one who came back in one piece was
Rabbi
Rabbi Akiva. Why? We'll see. I'm planning to, good idea. We'll read the Zohar's take on that, which is very interesting. But Rabbi Akiva and his 3 companions leave this world, apparently, go to a higher world. And can you continue, Victor, please? Rabbi Yishmael.
And Rabbi Yishmael, who purified himself by means of the divine name and rose to the higher realm, are 2 later examples.
Midrash Eile Ezkara, Leipzig, 1853. So can you give me the name in Hebrew of a prayer of the words of the prayer that say exactly that?
Yom Kippur Musaf.
And what do we say in the Eile Ezkara prayer?
The martyrs.
Yeah, but I want the exact verse about Rabbi Yishmael. Where is Bernard has stepped in. There's a famous cantorial piece called Tiher Rabbi Yishmael Atzmo v'hizkirat Hashem b'siludim v'ala lamaror v'sha'al me'et ha'ish halevush habadim. All the mysticism is all here before we even begin. Rabbi Yishmael and Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel are being taken out to be executed by the terrible Roman Turnus Rufus. And there are other rabbis, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion, Rabbi, etc. And what do? Marcel, they say, send somebody up to heaven who's going to find out if this is really our fate.
And the voice of God says, if you don't listen, no, say, I'll destroy the world if you don't
accept the decree.
Get the decree, yeah.
Okay. Afoch et ha'olam lemayim. Tia Rabbi Yishmael atzmo. This is the process. Rabbi Yishmael undergoes a purification. Goes to the mikveh, fasts, he meditates, his thoughts rise above his consciousness, and he's overtaken with the spirit, and he can rise up. He can go to heaven. Va'ala lamaron, okay? V'sha'al me'it ha'ish levush habadim. And he asks the one who's wearing the clothes of the Kohen Gadol, but he is a Kohen Gadol, talking about the heavenly companion or reflection. It's like a convex mirror of Rabbi Yishmael himself. And he says, is this what's going to happen? And what is the answer? Tablu alechem tzadikim v'yedidim. Accept upon yourselves the righteous and the dear ones. Ki bezot atem nilkadim. Because this is your fate. This is God's plan. And if you revolt, then as Marcel said, afoch et haolam lemayim. I have to destroy the world. Cannot run the world as it is. Where's Shmuley?
Here.
Shmuley, are you there? Now, does all this,
Here.
as far as you can be, does all this ring a cantorial bell?
Several.
Can you give us Kvartin's rendition of Tihe Rabbi Yishmael Atzmo? Famous.
No, copyright prevents it.
Okay, unfortunately, we have a lawyer who tells us that copyright prevents it. It is, of course, in the commons. It's out there, but we will pass up that opportunity. Very moving piece by a 19th and 20th century cantor called Zavulon Kvartin, and we recite this in the Eile Eskara. But this is the idea. In the past, you were a great man, and you undertook preparation, and you could somehow leave your body in this world and enter a higher realm. A similar approach. Marcel, you can read from line 10, please. Thank you, Victor. Similar approach.
A similar approach was adopted by the 13th century Hasidai Ashkenaz, invested in a lifestyle which would enable a person to rise above the world by means of prayer.
Above this world. The important word is this world.
This world, by means of prayer, meditation, asceticism, and exemplary piety.
The focus is always on special gifted souls, okay? They're the ones who can rise above. Rabbi Abraham Abulafia, we remember him well, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Prophetic Kabbalism, which is in fact a pragmatic philosophy of ecstasy for the elect.
How do you like that phrase? I take particular pride in it. Pragmatic philosophy of ecstasy for the elect. Pretty good, right? Also belongs to this school. Prior to the Zohar, Cheryl, over to you.
Okay. Prior to the Zohar, there was no well-developed theory of mystical elevation for regular people.
Now we get to the point. Before the Zohar, you had to be very spiritually talented. Moshe Rabbeinu, Rabbi Akiva and his companions, Rabbi Yishmael Kohen Gadol, or the type of prophetic mystic of the Abulafia school. You couldn't be a regular common garden Jew. But the Zohar opens a window for everybody to be able to enter this very special school of people who can transcend this world, but at a fairly mundane level, but still get into a higher realm. Another novel feature of the Zohar, Cheryl?
Another novel feature of the Zohar was its presentation of mystical doctrine as the profound and comprehensive biblical hermeneutic.
The practice.
Hermeneutic.
Okay.
Right.
Hermeneutic is the messenger of the gods, Hermes, who brought the words of the gods, which is a sacred text, and made them understandable or comprehensible to regular people. So that science of translating a sacred text into more understandable language is called a hermeneutic. So next time you encounter a hermeneutic, you'll know
I will pronounce
it's not
it
the
properly.
perfume, it's the messenger of the gods, okay? Now, The
Okay.
Zohar is actually a very big and long commentary on the Torah. Takes psukim, does amazing things with them. I haven't gone through all the different books of the Zohar, and there are quite a few. But the bulk of the Zohar is really commentary on the Torah, and we'll try and have a look at some of that too. Anyhow, Cheryl, continue, please. Line 70.
The Zohar provided a Jewish theosophy, namely a mystical doctrine, which both describes the workings of the divine and the means for a deep engagement with it in a form more suitable for general consumption.
Okay.
With it in a form more suitable for general consumption.
Oh, it's for you
Very
and
important.
me, perhaps.
Right.
But what is theosophy? Well, let's start with theology. Divided up into ancient Greek. Bernard, this is your opportunity to shine. What is theology?
Well, theos is God and Sophie is knowledge.
No, I said theology.
Oh, well, theos is God and logi is like logos, the word.
Logos is not, is,
How about logic? Logic.
yeah.
Logos as opposed to eros. We're going to go for the logos. It is the word, but that is a specialized use in Neoplatonism. Actually, logos is like logic, rational thought. So there's a rational approach to God, and theosophy. Can you unpack that for us, Bernard? Theos is God, and what is the sophy?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. Knowledge of God, but it's not rational, logical knowledge. Knowledge of God that comes to you through intuition, okay? Something that cannot be translated into logical form. Now, Rabbi Isaac the Blind, Rabbi Yitzchak Sagi Nahor, who mainly 12th century, early 13th, he was the son of the who? Which critic of the Rambam? We've mentioned this before.
Rabbi Abraham.
Ben David, exactly, the Ravid. He was the son of the Ravid. He was a major Kabbalist, and he was the teacher of Rabbi Israel of Gerona. And there's a whole circle of Kabbalists called the Gerona Kabbalists. When you visit Gerona next time, look out for the Kabbalists or their heritage. And Rabbi Azriel was in turn the teacher of both Ramban Nachmanides, who studied with Rabbi Azriel, and Rabbi Abraham Zakuto. And Rabbi Abraham Zakuto has what named after him?
A planet, I think on the moon.
A crater on the moon, exactly. The Zakuto crater. Okay, so more loose ends being tied up. So Rabbi Isaac the Blind says that Yidiyah is theology, rational knowledge of God. How do we get theosophy? We get it through Yinika. Like you suck mother's milk, it comes to you through a channel, through a place, but it enters you and fills you from within. And it actually takes you over rather than you controlling it. This knowledge, the theosophy, comes into you and takes you over. So it's a very different approach. There is, of course, a modern theosophical movement. You may have heard of that. Debbie said she had a housekeeper in Australia when she was growing up who was a theosophist. But Debbie says her gloss is that she went mad. So what that says about theosophy, I do not know. But it was set up in New York in 1875 by an eccentric Russian lady. And basically it believes in things like reincarnation and the brotherhood of humankind and a certain type of evolutionary ethic. But it's really mystical. And if you look at the symbol of the Theosophical Society, it's got all the symbols of all the religions. It's particularly influenced by the East. So it's this idea of, instead of you controlling and understanding and reasoning, you open yourself up to something and it enters you. So that is a very important difference. So let's see. Very importantly, Cheryl, line 19,
very importantly, it provided support for popular faith in the face of the challenges challenge a rationalist Jewish philosophy.
It's
The
no
focus
wonder
is on-
that the 13th century saw the emergence of the Zohar, because with the rationalism of the Rambam on the one hand, that was very elitist, with the constant attacks of the Catholic Church on Jewish belief and the unending attempts to convert Jews to Christianity, with a temptation both for becoming Christian and becoming a rational philosopher, and therefore not focused on mitzvot. What were you going to offer your regular frum man or woman? The answer is mysticism. So read on. The focus is on understanding.
The focus is on understanding the divine emanations called the 10 Sfirot, which were instrumental in the creation of
How
the
about
world.
Olam Ha'atzilut?
Well, yes, Olam Ha'atzilut,
Okay.
which
Now,
were instrumental.
where does the word, what's the word, what's the root? Aleph Tzadi Lamed here. What's it?
Nobility. Nobility.
Atzel?
Ability?
Nobility.
Danny?
No,
Etzel.
not at all.
Atzilei
It-
B'nai Yisrael.
It's like cell. It's like a shadow to put to cover something over.
Vayatzel min haruach. Moshe gave over his spirit.
Gave over. Yeah.
Now that spirit, when you've got it, makes you an atzil, because you are, as it were, to the manner born. So vayatzel min haruach, Moshe gave from the ruach to the shivim zekenim. And Debbie says in modern Hebrew we use la ha'atzil samchuyot, to delegate. So this is the world which God has delegated to the reign of the 10 Sfirot. In other words, God is high up in heaven, as we said, he's Ein Sof. But if you are a Kabbalist in the Zoharic mode, you will learn a lot about how he has emanated and how he flows down to us through 10 different emanations. Okay? By the way, Dina, since you're on the screen, according to his view, Rabbi Isaac the Blind may have put the Sefer HaBahir together, but there are many who dispute that. So therefore, but he's called Yitzchak Sagi Nahor. In fact, the best way to be a mystic is to be physically blind, because that means that you're spiritually seeing. Okay.
There's another pasuk, Danny. Ve'el atzilei b'nei Yisrael lo shalach yado.
That's right. It does, and we're going to talk about that. They ate and they drank. And even though they ate and they drank, vayuchlu vayishtu, the Zohar has a lot to say about that. But the Atzilim and the Atzilut are those who have received somehow the holy touch. Okay, that's why you are an Atzil.
Isn't it used for nobility as well, Atzilim? No.
Exactly. You are a noble because you came from the right line.
Right.
You're made of the right stuff. I did say to the manner born.
Oh, right.
In other words, it is kind of a derivative.
Oh,
And sometimes you live up to your Atzilut, and sometimes you don't. There are Atzilei B'nai Israel who should have been on a high level. They misbehaved. According to the Zohar, as we'll see, they stayed at a very primitive level of understanding. So it's as though they were eating and drinking the presence of something very holy, because they didn't get it. They lost the plot, like Rabbi Akiva's comrades in the Pardes. Mysticism is a dangerous activity, and you've got to get it perfectly correct. Okay. Which were instrumental
in the creation of the world, and by virtue of their interactions, continue to be necessary for its existence.
All right. So this is something that you have to believe, according to the Zohar, that there are 10 emanations. They are the way in which God created the world. That is Maaseh Breshit. They're also the way in which we can connect to God, which is Maaseh Merkava. Okay. The Sefirot are reflected.
The Sefirot are reflected in the minds and bodies of people and human body parts, and they can use them in such a way as to produce harmony in the Sephirotic realm, which in turn brings an outpouring of goodness to this world.
So if I put my shoe on my right foot and not my left foot, I'm already advancing up a ladder of connecting with the Sefirot, because as we'll see, one Sephirah is very concerned or symbolized by the right-hand side of the body. Okay? So if I honor the right and I play down the left is identified with evil, with the sitra achra, the other side, okay? Then I can help a little bit, not only me becoming more aware of the mystical side of religion, but I can also help balance the Sefirot. And when the Sefirot are balanced, as they go up the chain towards the Ein Sof, so there's more divine outpouring into this world. That's a given. There's a lot of givens here, and I think we're just going to continue to read. So who's next on the reading chart? The native English speakers. David Citron, I see you. Good evening. Unmute and take it away, of course.
Right,
There
of
we are.
course. God, as he is himself, namely Ein Sof, is totally unknowable to humankind, but it's possible to gain some knowledge of the 10 Sfirot. At the same time, it's vital to maintain the connection between Ein Sof and the Sfirot, and the Zohar connects them using the analogy of the coal and the flame. The coal exists even if there is no flame, but its latent power only manifests itself when it's lit and bursts into flame. The Sfirot are the mystical lights in which the dark and unknowable nature of the Ein Sof manifests itself.
So there we are, but you can see there's a problem here. On the one hand, there's the Ein Sof that we can never know. On the other hand, we are being told that we can somehow gain an understanding of God through the 10 Sefirot. Well, does that mean that there's more than one God? Are we on the verge of some form of dualism, two powers in the world, going back to Gnosticism and to Zoroastrianism? Or is this a form of decatheism? Bernard, what is decatheism?
10 gods. 10.
10 gods. Are we believing in 10 gods? This would be very embarrassing for a traditional Jew, because Shema Yisrael, Hashem Eloheinu, Hashem Echad. But that's a problem that bedeviled the Zohar when it came out, and it continues to bother traditional Jews to this day. I don't need to translate all of this stuff here, because we've got a lot of sources. So we'll just move on to the next bit in English. David, would you continue, please? The major challenge.
The major challenge to the Zoharic Kabbalah with respect to splitting the Godhead into 10 Sfirot is that at first sight it deviates from the fundamental principle of divine unity. Indeed, the Zohar was often accused of dualism, or decatheism even, in the period following its publication. In order to rebut any such charge, its defenders insisted that A, the Sfirot are aspects of God, which are revealed and can be understood to a certain extent, but they are not separate from him. And B, God's essence is absolutely unknowable. In that respect, the Kabbalistic doctrine of Ein Sof is as strict as the Maimonidean Via Negativa, if not stricter. This did not, however, prevent critics of the Zohar from attacking it.
13th century Rabbi Meir ben Shimon of Narbonne. Yesh lahamin she'en sheni lenegdo. There's nothing opposite God. V'hu echad b'achdut t'mima. He's a perfect unity. V'li shituf or v'li tzeruf sfirot. There are no additional sfirot. There's nothing that goes together with God. It's pure unity. Hu sibat kol hasibot v'ilat kol ha'ilot. He's the cause of everything. Oseh gdolot. Himsi et hakol. Created it all out of nothing with his will alone. You will not put the created together with the creator. Or the material with the former. Do you see Atzilut here now? The one who endows is not to be made equal to the one who receives that endowed status or class or nobility, or call it what you want. Now, what do the Kabbalists do? Thank you, David. Jeff Fisher, it's up to you. Unmute, please.
Many Kabbalists reacted to the criticism by invoking the mysterious nature of the relationship between the Ein Sof and the Sfirot, calling it Sod HaYichud.
It's the secret of how we are both believers in divine unity, but also want to connect with the 10 Sfirot. Others.
Like Rabbi Moshe Cordovero,
We'll talk about him in another shiur.
Adapted a more philosophical approach, sought to explain that it's precisely because the Kabbalah has such a strong concept of God's unity that the 10 Sfirot are absolutely necessary.
אחרי שנתעמתו בעניין מספר הספירות, ראוי שנחקורם הם מוכרחות. Is there any basis for these 10 ספירות? Theologically. ולזה נאמר שהן מוכרחות מכמה סיבות. You've got to have them even from a theological, philosophical perspective. הראשונה, מפני שאנו המאמינים בהשגחת פרטית, because we believe that God actually intervenes, השגחה פרטית, okay, in every single thing that we do. How does God do that? How does he help us pass our math exam, or get the right shidduch, or send us to the right physician, or make us take up the right career? מוכרחים אנו לומר שהוא משגיח מצד הספירות. God works through the sfirot, and that's how, like the great personality at the head of the chain knows how to delegate tasks to the staff, right? You delegate. You couldn't possibly, as the head of a vast international company, go into the details of what your Peoria, Illinois branch is actually doing at this instant, or what they're doing in Woolloomooloo, okay? So it makes sense that God would have to work through some type of agencies. And these are the emanations, and these are the sefirot. כי האחד הפשוט עילת כל העילות מסולק מן השינוי מן המידות, רצון לומר חכם צדיק שומע בשאר התוארים אשר סלקו ממנו החוקרים. Rambam, God doesn't interfere, doesn't have anything to do with what goes on in this world directly, okay? And also when it says that God came down, or God heard, or God's hand, or God's eyes, that's not because God has a hand or an eye. It's because he is interested in what happens to our hands and our eyes and what we do with them. So we can't have this absolutely, totally unphysical, unconcerned Aristotelian prime mover and a God that's intimately interested in what you are doing here and now. It has to be some kind of intermediary. Olam Atzilut. There are those who are appointed, God has divested, and these are his agents, the 10 Sfirot. Okay? ואנו מוכרחים להאמין השגחתו שגם העיקרי הדת, ולכן אנו צריכים להאמין בספירות כדי שלא יהיו עיקרי אמונתנו סותרים אלו לאלו. Ramak Cordovero was the great philosophical defender of the Zohar, and this is a typical move on his part. Shmuley, would you like to give us a Mancunian version from line 24, please? The Zohar.
Zohar presents the Sfirot as a comprehensive scheme of understanding how God relates to the world. Every word in the Torah ought to be understood as referring to the Sfirot. For example, V'zos yivar Aaron el HaKodesh, rak b'yot hashchina, Sfirat Malchus im hadam az yigash el HaKodesh.
Okay, so this is the Yom Kippur service. Kohen Gadol comes into the Kodesh HaKodashim, bezot, with this. What would this be? It would be the sacrifices that he's told to bring. But the Zohar says no. Zohar says that bezot means with the Sfirah of Malchut, the lowest Sfirah, as we'll see, which is the best that human beings can do. Unless you have knowledge of Kabbalah, you couldn't be a Kohen Gadol and execute Yom Kippur successfully. There you are, okay? Now, another example.
Another famous example is in the first verse of the Torah, Bereshis bara Elokim, which the Targum Yerushalmi renders as B'chokhma bara Hashem.
B'chukma, in Aramaic, B'chukma bara Hashem. Now, some of us may still be misled by the King James Version. We say, in the beginning, God created. But that's not really a reflection of what the words mean. So it could mean more profoundly, with Reshit, God created. So God used something called Reshit to create the world. He wasn't directly involved in it, Michael, not at all. Don't think that God is concerned with this world in a direct way. He has a lot of intermediaries, a lot of agents, a lot of people, a lot of entities, spiritual entities to whom he divests this role. So who created the world according to the Zohar? Reshit. And Reshit is the Sphira of Chokhmah, the first Sphira. So Chokhmah is in charge. Malchut is the lowest one, which is how everything ends up in this world. Okay? We start with Chokhmah, we go down to Malchut. So, this is the Zohar. This is the Logos that you may remember from all sorts of things that were competitors to Judaism. Correct, David? I see you smiling there. The Logos created, but it is connected with God, but it's not God. It is the divested aspects of God. So this is B'chukmata, or B'chukma, and this is the Sphira of Chokhmah, clearly. The rest of the creation, Shmuli.
The rest of the creation account actually refers to the Sphirot in the archetypal capacity.
And then every day is a manifestation of the Sephirot. Well, are you going to believe that? Or do you want to stay with your belief that God, the one and only God, total unity, was responsible for the creation of everything? Well, this is the Zohar, and this is the world we are entering. Another feature, who's next down the line? Dina, I see you are here. So Dina, you're on, please. Another feature.
Another feature of Zoharic mysticism is divine anthropomorphism. Whereas the rationalist understands any reference to a divine body, as a metaphor, to the
God's hand isn't God's hand, God's mouth is not God's mouth, it's a metaphor. To the Kabbalist,
the hand of God represents one of the Sphirot, Chesed or Gvura, right and left hand respectively.
Chesed is what we call Rachamim, Gvura is what we call Din. Now, you have to get Chesed and Gvura into a right balance, because if you have too much Chesed, then it's like, you're so kind that your brains fall out. If you only have Gvura, then you are very harsh, and this is evil. So, and it is personified by the right and the left-hand side of the body. But the body, of course, is the body of the Sephirotic system, Olam HaAtzilut, which is a huge, marvelous, wonderful body that we can barely imagine. There's a whole book of Kabbalah called Sefer HaKomah that describes God's body in hundreds and thousands of miles, okay? Just being very coarse about this. But all of this is meant to tell us that we are created in a divine image, and we are responsible for bringing harmony amongst the Sphirot. So every single thing we do, Jack, is important. Which shoe you put on first, what you think about when you make the bracha of Abraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov, it gives your regular Jew amazing powers. Everybody, lahavdil elef havdalot, is some kind of Harry Potter. If you get it right, you can make a profound change in the world. This is a long way away from Rambam's elitist intellectual type of Judaism. So it's very exciting, very appealing, and it will make you want to do all of the mitzvot in a more enthusiastic way. Okay, again, we're skimming the surface. The higher reality,
reality of the Sphira endows the human limb with its existence and potential for using it either for the good or for the bad.
In other words, if you're a Kabbalist, you'd regard the human body, and here I'm going to have to say the male body, as a Merkava. It's a walking chariot of God, and the things it does can produce amazing changes. On the other hand, if it messes up, it's going to do terrible things, okay? But there's a whole world between us and the Ein Sof. Okay, so we're going to ease ourselves into this fairly gently. Dina, continue. A deep knowledge.
I'll continue. A deep knowledge of the Sfirot will enable people to become partners with God in achieving harmony in both the Sephirotic realm and the world. The Zohar is very insistent that this project, Tikkun Olam...
Now, when we use the phrase Tikkun Olam, it means its historical meaning is in the Zohar, and it means bringing the Sefirot into the right balance. I don't know whether those very modern Jews talk about Tikkun Olam in terms of justice and peace for all humankind, really are concerned with bringing harmony between Chesed and Gevurah and knowing which shoelace and which shoe to put on first. But that's just a little irritating observation by me on the side. Cannot be achieved
by the mainstream Jewish agenda of learning Torah, keeping mitzvot, praying sincerely, performing good deeds, and sanctifying life in general, together with a bland dose of theological principles such as God the Creator, the divine Torah, fear and love of God, divine providence, reward and punishment, and the concept of redemption.
Okay, your
sounds like you're saying it's against rabbinic Judaism.
Your regular Jew thinks that he or she is on the right track when they learn Torah, keep the mitzvot, give tzedakah, and then have some broad ideas about hashgacha, reward and punishment, and gula. But no, says the Zohar, you're really very parav when you're on that level alone. Harvey, you're next. Thank you, Dina. Line 2, those who possess.
Okay, sorry. Those who possess this secret understanding are called B'nai
Hechala. Now, that
Hechala.
means sons of the palace. Shmuley, are you there?
No.
Do you remember singing B'nai Hechala at Shalashudas?
Yes, many times.
Okay.
Debbie says, give us a rendition.
Yeah.
B'nai Hechala, Zeranpin is a smaller configuration of the Sifirot. This Shalashudas was the mystical time. This is the time of the Zohar where we unite all the worlds. That's why the Hasidim get together at Shalashudas, and it's only the males, and they do their thing, and they are called the sons of the palace. B'nai Hechala Dichsifin, they desire Kisufim. The Zeir Anpin is a Zoharic term for the configuration of the lesser Sifirot, and we're trying to, I guess, hype ourselves up to bring about the union of these Sifirot. So all of this stuff is very loaded. All right, so Shmuley, would you like to give us your version of B'nai Hechala?
B'nai Hechala Dichsifin, I can't remember it anymore.
Bahai Taco. It's in the artificial Aramaic. And here we have a version from Marcel, right? Is that
I remember vaguely, but it's obviously more Sephardi than Ashkenaz.
okay?
But I can't remember much.
There are three Zmirot, by the way, that the Ari Kadosh wrote for each of the Shabbat meals. And if we're starting with the Kabbalah, the Ari will be here all night. But each meal represents a different stage in bringing a union amongst the Sfirot. So on Friday night, we sing Azamer Bishvachim, Exactly. And once you mention Irin Kadishin, you know you're in the Zohar, the Holy Spirits, okay? And what do you sing by day? Asader li sudata betzafra de Shabbata. Va'azmin behashta yakira kadisha. I'm going to invite to my meal the precious Holy One. And then I'm going to bring the Shekhinah together with Knesset Israel, and then we talk about Prishut. We'll talk about the erotic aspect of this if we have time tonight as well. And then at Sulah Shlishit, we are B'nai Hekala. We've entered the palace. We're there. We've done our stuff, and we can look forward to a complete and perfect union amongst the Sefirot. So, Harvey, after that brief introduction, now you know what sons of the palace are, since only they
will enter God's palace in this world and enjoy his presence in the hereafter. Exoteric Torah mitzvah observance constitutes a very low level of religious experience, and the Zohar is highly critical of those who do not seek to plumb their depths for the mystical law relating to God, which lie under their surface.
If you want to make your view of the world popular, or your form of religion popular, a good thing is to put all the other forms down. Say, my way is the best and only way, and the thing that you're doing is actually not much good at all. Then you're likely to gain quite a few adherents because people like feeling that they're special. So continue, please.
In this view, the mitzvah likened to the body and the esoteric knowledge of God is compared to the soul. Similarly,
esoteric means secret, and exoteric is on the surface, available to all. Okay?
Similarly, the narrative elements of the Torah are to be properly understood in terms of their deeper meanings. The literal text is like the outer garment.
Now, this is very famous piece of Zohar. I'll read and translate. Rabbi Shimon Amar. Who is Rabbi Shimon?
Hi.
Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rashbi, said, Vai, woe, lahahu barnash, to that person, Da'amar da'ha'oraita ata lachaza sipurim, can be understood as regular stories, ba'alma umilin dehedyote, and regular words. Rabbi Ishmael in the Talmud says, Dibra Torah kelashon bnei Adam, but that's not for the Zohar. De'i hachi afilu anan yachlin lemebad oraita b'milim dehedyote uvishvacha yatir mikul. We could, in fact, have written a much better storybook than what we have in the Torah. Ela kol milin doraita milin ilain inun. Every word in the Torah belongs to a higher realm, the razin ilain, and is a supernal secret. Hai sipur doraita levusha doraita ihu. The narratives in the Torah are only the outer garment. Man dechashiv dahu levusha ihu oraita mamash. You think that the outer garment is the Torah, is the essence of the Torah, v'la mila achra, and not something else. Tipach ruche, your spirit should be blasted. V'la yehei lechulka ba'alma dati, and you won't have a share in the world to come. Begin kach amar David, gal einai va'abita niflaot mitoratecha. David HaMelech meant that in Tehillim. If you don't know the Zohar, says David HaMelech, you don't really understand the Torah. Just as Rambam turned Amos and Yeshayahu into Aristotelians, so the Zohar turns anything in the Tanakh into a Kabbalist. V'inun tipshin, and those fools, kad chaman the barnash b'levusha ditchazir lon Shapiro, when they see somebody dressed, sartorially decked out, okay, well dressed, la mistakling natir, they don't look any further. Chashivu dahu levusha chashivuta linishmata. Kahai gavna oraita itla gufa v'inun pekude oraita da akrun gufe atorah hai gufa mitlabsha b'levushin the sipurin da hai alma. Everything in the Torah has got an inner soul and an outer dressing, and you have to penetrate the dressing to get to the soul. Tipshin da alma, the Zohar makes no bones about it. Those fools of the world, la mistakli ela bahu levusha diu sipur doraita, v'la yadi yatir, v'la mistakli b'mar diu techot hahu levusha. Underneath that garment is what counts. Inun de yadin yatir la mistakli b'levusha ela bagufa diu techot hahu levusha. Hakimin avdi damalka ila inun. The kaimi betura de Sinai la mistakli ela binishmata. The ihu ikra, the kula oraita mamash. And these are the select souls who at Sinai saw beneath the surface of the Torah and plumbed its mystical depths. From another place in the Zohar, Hai Chivata Kadisha Kaima. Now, when you get to heaven, you're going to meet one of the Chayot, like in Yechezkel, one of these angels, okay, called Chayot. Kad nishmata salka umata'at legabe. And when the soul gets up, it has an interview with this chaya. Kedain sha'ala baraza dechukmeta demare. The chaya then will engage you in a discussion of the secrets of the Kabbalah. How much Zohar have you imbibed? Chukmeta demare is the wisdom of the master of the soul, which is God. Uchapum hayi chukmeta de radif abatra ve'idbak, and in accordance with the amount of that mystical wisdom that you've chased and run after in your life and has cleaved to you, that's your reward in the world to come. Shmuley, you won't get to the paradise you're really thinking about all day unless you really get a handle on the Zohar. Now, were you able to cleave to this mystical wisdom, but you didn't? You're pushed outside, and you don't go up to Gan Eden. And you stay underneath that palace, the Heichal. What's Bekisifu? What's Kisufa? Velule de Mistafina, shame. Okay? Kisufa. And you're ashamed because you didn't become an expert in the Zohar. So who else do we have amongst the English native speakers who hasn't spoken yet? Who's iPhone 26? Hello? I don't know. Okay. Robert or Shirley, are you there? Robert Burson or Shirley? Okay. We'll go back to the beginning. Victor,
did you want me to continue?
Who is that?
It's Harvey.
Harvey. No, thank you, Harvey. We'll go back to the beginning and we'll get Victor back on for line 23.
It is noteworthy that it is noteworthy that the competing philosophical approach, as embodied in Maimonides' guide, adopts a similar approach. In his famous parable of the palace,
remember Rambam and the Mashal of the Armon, the parable of the palace. Similar idea. Maimonides also
downplays the Talmudists who do not seek philosophical wisdom in their Judaism and makes a successful afterlife dependent upon intellectual achievement.
Except the Rambam has it only for a few, and the Zohar, from the 13th century onwards, offers it to the whole of the Jewish people if they want to. Okay?
There are, however, two major differences between the philosophical approach and the mystical one. The former is intellectual in nature, whereas the latter is inspirational, using what Rav Moses ben Dilion calls the Shikol Kodesh.
Who we remember him, right?
We do.
We do, good. Or Sechel Kadosh, holy.
The Seichel Kadosh.
Yeah.
To achieve understanding of God.
Yehuda Halevi in the Kuzri talks about Koach Elohi. So these are things like the Yitzchak Sagina Hor said, they come into you, okay? A holy intellect, the God's power, you do not control them. If you open yourself up, they will come into you. So you have to relinquish control. Now, this is, of course, very Eastern. And this gives us a clue as to where some of the Zohar and the Kabbalah may have come from. I'm not going to take you heavily into Neoplatonism, Plotinus, Gnosticism, but it actually comes from the East, where in the East, religion or spirituality is a matter of getting out of the way and giving up control rather than the opposite. So when you fast and you meditate and you recite the names of God or the Sphirot or the emanations, and you stay up late and you're active in the middle of the night, you're likely to be able to experience and intuit things much more than in the middle of the day using your regular intellect. So this is what we have to pay very close attention to. That's number one. Second, Victor, please, the
philosophical approach is purely contemplative, whereas the Kabbalist seeks to adopt an active role in his or her religious life. Okay. The study of the Kabbalah ignites a spark in the soul of the Kabbalist, who becomes a partner with God in restoring harmony in both the upper world and the lower one. The Kabbalist
Itrauta
dilatata works together with
Tata is below. Itrauta is the rising of the spirit. Okay, works together with
the divine forces in heaven.
Itrauta
Aliyah.
The Le'ela is above. Le'ela mikol brichata v'shirata nekadish is above all praises and songs. Okay, Le'ela.
And it is this activist approach which makes the Kabbalah unique among the world's mystical systems.
Everybody, you don't have to be a yogi. Every Jew doing certain things in a certain way and intended to connect with the 10 Sphirot can already put themselves on the track of spiritual perfection. Imagine that. Now, the Zohar has a beautiful passage to illustrate this. Vayomer Hashem el Avram lech lecha me'arzlecha umimoladatecha umibeit avicha. But Avram was already on his way to the land of Canaan, correct?
Correct.
So what is this Vayomer Hashem el Avram? The Zohar says Avram had to want to go to Eretz Canaan. Eretz Canaan was for him a way of connecting with the 10 Sphirot. After all, he is Osena Fashot Becharan, Dina. He uses the Sefer Yetzirah to create people, as we learn in Gemara Sanhedrin, that Rabbi Oshaya and Rabbi Hanina, they created a calf to eat on Shabbat, and Rabbi Zera also, or Rava, created an anthropoid. He sent it to Rabbi Zera, who tested its intelligence, realized it wasn't intelligent, said, you are created by the Chaveri, and he returned him to the dust. So Avraham is, of course, the unique mystic, and that explains, of course, why he was able to offer his guests Chemah, Chalav, and Ben Bakar. What's the answer, Dina? The Ben Bakar was created.
Kama, one at a time.
No, the Bakar was created by using Sefer Yetzirah. If you create a calf using Sefer Yetzirah, it's not fleshing.
It's parav. Okay.
It's parav. That's like genetically modified.
But yet GM stuff, yeah.
Way more exciting than Breshit Rabbah, no question.
Exactly. So now, of course, Avraham has to go Itrauta dilatata. He makes the first move in this world. And when, after he's made this move, then there is Itrauta Dilaela. God comes in and says, and the Rebbe of Gur in the Sfat Emet and all the Hasidic authors, they say, God's call, Vayomer Hashem, El Avram, Avram is every man, Lech lecha, go somewhere, move, change, become more spiritual, become more moral. God's voice is saying that all the time. But unless there is a movement in you or in all of us, people in this world, there's no Itrauta dilatata, that voice carries on and nobody hears it, as it says in the Psalm, okay, that the voice of God goes from one end of the world to the other, okay, but it is not heard. You have to reach out. So the movement between the Itrauta de la Tata, the Itrauta de la Ela, is in fact one of the basic principles that the Zohar has taught us, and it puts it in a more folksy framework, using both the elitist approach that we find in Rambam, but making it available to all and tying it to the most physical things we do in our lives, and especially the yesod, the generative aspect. And we'll talk a little about the erotic sexual side of the Zohar and all sorts of other things that flow from that. As you can see, we have a picture here. The picture could be either of a human being. Keter is on top. Now, Keter is not really a Sephirah. It's like the crown on top of the king's head. Chokhmah is on the right side, so it's the top Sephirah. Binah is on the left side. Right side is masculine. Left side is, surprise, surprise, feminine. Chesed on the right side. Gevurah on the left side. Tiferet is the body. Yesod, the reproductive organ. The Ot Brit Kodesh. Malch with Netzach and Hod as supporting principles. Netzach is your right thigh. Hod is your left thigh. And Malchut is where it all comes together, is Malchut Hashem Ba'aretz. Vayashem lemelech al kol haaretz. This is the lowest sphera that we can actually have control over. And we will talk about the Sifrot next time, because I do believe we are out of time.
You hit the phone. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Marcel.
Why is Malchut on the bottom?
Okay, let me, first of all, I'll go out of the share. Okay, why is Malchut at the bottom? Because Malchut is what the Torah says we can connect with. Vayashem lemelech al kol, what's the next word? Aretz. The Aretz connects with Malchut Hashem. But clearly, Malchut Hashem that we can understand can't be real Malchut Hashem, because God's crown Keter is at the top. So we are only capable of a very limited understanding. So Malchut belongs to us, okay? Keter is at the top. We go the right and the left, go down the middle. There's the Yesod, and explains a lot of halachot about things that we're going to talk about, okay? And part of the way Zohar has influenced the halacha, and anybody who's read Tfilat Zakah on Erev Yom Kippur will have an inkling of what I mean. Okay, but we'll talk about that later. Are there any comments or questions?
So many questions.
Okay.
Wow. Why are there 10 Sfirot and not 8? Say, who gets the number 10? Where does that come from?
Okay. You could, in different theosophical systems, you had different numbers. But the best way of explaining this is that in Sefer Yetzirah, which is a very old Kabbalistic work, these Sfirot are lined up with the Eser Mamarot, with which God created the world. What brought us into existence? 10 words. Jeff, what are those words? Have you ever asked yourself? Well, Zohar has the answer. The 10 Sefirot. That's how God created the world. He's up there in Sof. We're down here. We can connect with the lower Sefirah, Malchut. Now, these are the Eser Ma'amarot. Then we go through. Why do you stand up, by the way, in Vayavarech David? I'll tell you next time. It's connected with the 7 lower Sefirot.
Okay.
And we have the names of God. 10 is the number, okay? But could have been 8, but it just happens to be 10. Okay, Jean, you wanted to say something.
I want to ask 2 questions. The first is a little bit impertinent. On page 3, Rabbi Shimon Amar, on philological level, is this Aramaic is strange. It's not like the Talmud Babel, and it's not like the Yerushalmi. Is that?
And the answer to that is very simple, and we've said it many times. The Aramaic of the Zohar is an artificial Aramaic created by those who published the Zohar, Rabbi Moshe de Leon, to make it look a mysterious, magical type of thing. Nobody ever spoke like this, and nobody ever wrote like this when Aramaic was a living language. You may remember that one of the criticisms aimed by Rabbi Yaakov Emden and others at the authenticity of the Zohar was that there was no Aramaic like this in the time of Rashbi. Okay, first question answered. Second question.
The whole theory of Tikkun Olam, the impression that God is not complete and he needs us to become complete. This is in contradiction complete with the, let us say, what says Rambam about God.
Absolutely. The answer to that, of course, is that God wants the world to be complete. Okay? In order for the world to be complete, we have to have a harmony between the Sephirot. But he himself is not involved. He's up there. He created the world using the Sephirot. Gentlemen and ladies, it's up to you. I give you the world. There is a knowledge of the Sephirot. Kindly learn, get it right, and you'll have a nice world. Mess it up, you'll have a terrible world. Okay? But I myself am totally disconnected. I set the whole thing in motion. At the same time, don't deny the connection between the Sephirot and me, because if you do, there'll be Shtei Rushuyot. That's the embarrassing part of this whole theory. Okay, this whole story, this whole world is always teetering on the verge of dualism. Always teetering on the verge of dualism. The more lively and realistic you make the world of Sphirot, the more status you give to Metatron or Samael, the more you are threatening the ideal of God's absolute unity. So you have to choose. You choose between involvement at a very prosaic level. Everything you do, Torah, mitzvot, the way you smile, the way you talk, has mystical significance, or we do it because we are on the path to some almost unachievable Maimonidean perfectionist prophetic state. Is there anything in the middle? Well, most of us are probably in the middle. On the one hand, we like to be rational, and we will go with the Rambam. On the other hand, we still like to sing B'nai Hechala. We like to use the Zoharic niceties when it comes to how we practice our mitzvot. We will say La'alam u'la'almei almaya yitbarach. We will do those things that the Zohar says we ought to do. By the way, the Mishnah Brura is very clear about this. You read the Mishnah Brura, he cites the Zohar hundreds of times, but never the idea of Sphirot, never. Only things that come out of the concept of Sphirot, okay? The practices, holding your Kiddush cup in the palm of your hand, is that halakha?
No.
People make a big fuss. They curl their fingers like petals, right, around the base of a flower.
No, not halakha, no.
It's not. But we do it, okay? Because we saw it. It's a custom. We like it. It makes the Kiddush special. So there you are. Most of us are somewhere in the middle here. So the Mishnah Brura gives us a way of holding the cup, gives us a lot of things based upon the Zohar, and that's what I plan to do as well, okay, because that's a major interest of mine, the influence of halakha, of Zohar on the halakha. But it is always disassociated from the real hardcore mystical Sephirot. They do not appear. Whereas when you learn Kabbalah, as we will, this is what it's all about. The world of the Sephirot and the production of harmony. Okay, Victor, did you have a question? If you're still here. No. Okay.
What determines what's on the right and the left of the Sephirot?
what's the right and what's the left?
Tell me, which ones are on the right side and which one on the left side?
The ones on the right side of the diagram are on the right, and the ones on the left side of the diagram are the ones on the left. So Chesed,
is there a difference between them? Because Gevurah is on the left. But I would have...
Gevurah is dangerous. Gevurah gives rise, as we'll see, to Midat Hadin. Chesed is God's outflowing of goodness. But if God constantly outflows with goodness, it comes from God through the Sefirot, comes out of Chesed, and you have all goodness around you, that's not good, because then there are no limits and no boundaries. So Din comes in from the left. I'm going to impose limits. If you have too many limits, though, and you're judged very strictly, then you will not be able to survive. So you have to have, and it's a bit, Marcel, like a parent. You give your child love, but you also need to give your child limits. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is it often challenging to find the right balance between love and limits?
Yes.
Yes. Cheryl, right, says yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So getting it right is very difficult. And, you know, sometimes you can go badly wrong. And that's why evil, the Sitra Achra, the other side, is associated with Gevurah, which is on the left.
Okay.
Because when you don't get that right balance, you give too much love or you give too many limits, you can give rise to a very bad person.
But the masculine versus feminine side, is that a significant aspect?
Absolutely. If you're on the right, you're better being on the right than the left. Bina, which is on the left, it's the left arm, is of course a feminine thing. It's associated with the womb. Okay, we'll come to that as well when we start talking about the Sefirot. But I'm sure you've heard that Bina is meant to be a feminine attribute, right?
Yeah.
Now, when we say that, we think about it in a very positive way. Correct, Dina? Women have much more than Chokhmah, they have Bina. But actually, Chokhmah is much higher on the Sephirotic scale than Bina. Bina is on the left side. So you need to have...
Intuition. Yeah.
Exactly.
Intuition.
Intuitia can lead you astray very badly. A bit like conceptia, I could say, if I want to be a little naughty, okay? All of these things, anyhow, we'll talk about the body of a tree. The Zohar also compares this picture to a tree with branches and leaves and a trunk, and the sustenance has to come like the photosynthesis, the light and the water. You get light from the top, water from the bottom. Fascinating images. You can spend a whole lifetime in this world, okay? Some people do, but there we are. We're just going to have a very quick dip into the river of the Zohar, and then we'll clamber up on the banks and finish up with how we are going to relate the Zohar to the halakha, but we will talk about a few of these things next week as well. What I plan to do is we'll send this out formally, but we are going to go on until the end of July, possibly the beginning of August. But after that, there'll be a long break until the middle of September because of various things, including a Dimmenstein family simcha. Correct, Jack? We do indeed. You are muted, but the important thing is to hear the Mazel Tov, okay? All right, so there we are. I wish everybody a very good evening. And
that's all.
Going well.
Thank you very, very much.
Pleasure. Besurot Tovot. And next week, same time, same